For more on the Senate confirmation hearings and Trump's executive orders, let's welcome an investigative columnist at the Daily Signal, Tony Kinnett. Tony, welcome back to the Leventhal Report. During his campaign, President Trump promised to be dictator for a day, and that had the left-wing media's head spinning. But what he meant was that he would sign executive orders to immediately implement his agenda, and it looks like he's been true to his word. What stands out for you after Trump's first day in office?
I mean, what stands out for me is that we all woke up on day two. I was promised that the world was going to end, the atmosphere was going to split in half, and that red banners with swastikas would be flying throughout Washington, D.C. And all that happens was Donald Trump signed executive orders to a roaring, cheering crowd. And then later at the commander-in-chief ball, we're all looking around for him, waiting to see the president come in. And he hasn't stopped working. He was signing executive orders late into the night. Some of my personal favorites include, as a former teacher and administrator, watching him get rid of DEI garbage from the federal government, as well as pulling us out of the World Health Organization right after the World Health Organization chair or whatever the guy is tried to suck up to Donald Trump after Trump's victory. Just an endless stream of victories after Biden really weaponized executive orders like Obama did. It's good to see Trump actually deliver on keeping that pen going until he tossed those Sharpies into the cheering crowd.
And Tony, I think you probably would agree that yesterday in general was a remarkable day. Just watching him do all the things that he does, his uncharacteristic style, the way he just speaks his mind and talks to the press at every turn, unlike anything we've seen over the last 4 years.
That's true. And of course, we've, those of us in the punditry circles and the reporting and the show circles, we've talked about how nice it is to have a president who can walk and chew gum at the same time, or, mount a flight of stairs or talk to reporters without a Karine Jean-Pierre holding his hand. That's excellent. Or making veiled dementia-ridden threats, as Biden especially did in the last year. Those are nice bonuses. However, I want to point to something that inspired me. Back when Donald Trump announced his re-election campaign for this particular election cycle, he talked a little bit about Mars from that Mar-a-Lago speech. And I remember being kind of taken aback that Trump actually discussed something like that. It seemed very JFK visionary to me. And to hear Trump reiterate that American promise now in his inauguration speech, that was a touchstone moment, at least for me, as someone who's followed this campaign all the way through, did a lot of reporting on how the media covered it. This is a president who is focused on the future and not just the progressive utopian vision, but actually one that celebrates the successes of American industry and the average American patriot.
And Tony, we mentioned a bunch of the executive orders that were signed on day one. I mentioned them in my monologue. There are almost too many to count, but which of them do you expect to be challenged the hardest, and which do you think might be implemented without delay?
I think restoring the death penalty is going to be one of those things. I think that you're going to see federal judges try to throw up injunctions. Emergency price relief possibly getting a little bit of an injunction. But the largest that is likely going to be challenged is Trump's interpretation of a very poor Supreme Court decision early in the 20th century on the 14th Amendment. The idea that two people who weren't born here can just pop into the country, have a kid, presto, an American citizen. That's not how that was supposed to work. That's not how that language was defined. I think those will be the biggest touchstones. As far as culturally, though, watching some of the more rhino Republicans lose their mind over Mount McKinley because, oh, heaven forbid, the conquered Alaskan Native tribe and the name that they gave it, that they had previously changed like 4 times in the last 300 or 400 years. Oh, no, it's Mount McKinley again. That's receiving blowback in probably one of the most childish ways, but nevertheless, I guess I admire their energy at fighting something so clearly important to them.
It does look like Trump is keeping his promise to make America energy independent. He pulled the U.S. from the Paris Agreement. He declared a national energy emergency to accelerate permitting of oil, gas, and power projects with the goal of reducing consumer energy prices and improving U.S. national security by expanding domestic supplies, also bolstering some of our allies. Your thoughts on this energy push?
I'm going to be honest with you, Rick. I don't often allow the Trump is playing chess when others are playing checkers here. I think he's much more of a surface level guy. I will say that declaring a national emergency over the energy crisis was a masterstroke because President Biden depleted the Strategic Petroleum Reserve with all of his temporary price decreases and a lot of other nonsense international deals and trying to loosen sanctions. And it was a very critical blow to America's defense through energy production. For Trump to then use that as a lever to push through a lot of projects that Biden halted in his green energy initiatives is not only admirable, it is a masterclass in a political mechanism to bring back American national security and independence through energy production. It is sorely needed. We're lagging behind China in coal production, no matter what Senator Shelton Whitehouse and the other goobers on the Democrat confirmation hearings may tell you. We need to be producing energy at maximum capacities. We need to do it competently. By the way, that's what the people in Pennsylvania voted for. So the Rust Belt is ready to see energy production return.
Awesome. You probably know Marco Rubio was confirmed as Secretary of State by the Senate. Pam Bondi and Pete Hegseth have been approved by their Senate committees and will now face a full vote by the Senate. But Hegseth hitting a snag today. Do you think his nomination is now in jeopardy, and any of the others facing challenges for their approval?
You have to help me with this because the story is already starting to change. The story that Pete Hegseth's former sister-in-law says that Pete Hegseth's ex-wife said that he used to yell or rage or something. And first of all, I've heard stories from exes where they claim that their ex did everything with the kitchen sink. That's always kind of suspicious. But man, what timing. Wow, this last-minute report. Somebody get Christine Blasey Ford in front of the Senate stat. At this point, they have accused him of everything except returning shopping carts to the Walmart cart corral.
I hadn't heard that one. There was a safe word mentioned in the article I read, but they never said what the safe word was. So
a safe word?
I don't know.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I am. But the story supposedly was enough to give a couple of Republicans pause, which could be enough to be the difference maker in Hegseth not getting approved. And I guess that's why it's, this 11th hour letter or testimony.
I doubt.
Maybe having some, you're not buying it.
I'm not buying that this is actually going to stymie Republicans. Remember, we went through this with Brett Kavanaugh. And so the story is that Pete Hegseth's wife, I guess, said, let's say the safe word is coconuts. And so Pete Hegseth, I guess, said, what are we doing? Are we really boiling down to this? They're so terrified that Hegseth is actually going to get in there and scrap some of these pencil-pushing four-star logistics generals. It is just beyond goofy at this point.
Well, it sounds like you enjoyed day one as much as I did. Day two has been also head-spinningly busy. It's remarkable to me how much energy our oldest president, oldest president to be sworn in, has. Tony Kinnett, we really appreciate your insights, and we'll have you back on soon.
Thanks very much, Rick.